We're going to drink this one to Ozzy, a good man who tried to save my ass by injecting me into yours.
Injecting into what chaos ass?
Injecting a man
Chaos's
into
ass.
another. That looks like homosexuality. Love. Baby, let me inject you.
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
no,
What
inject.
can I get for $10?
They really,
Everything you want, baby.
really.
$20 is $20.
Who do we have here? Who do we have here this episode?
Hello, everybody, and I hope you're not confused. You are in the right show.
Yeah, here in man injects another man into a man. Yeah.
I am the lab member number 2, Robert.
And lab member number 3, Captain Chaos.
And because I'm the mad scientist, I get to be lab member number 1 this week. It's Ray from down in
Yeah.
Australia.
You're
G'day,
always
mates.
our lab member number 1, right?
Yeah, you can blame everything on me when you go screw up. That's what lab member number 1 means.
And I bet like just like Robert, everybody for any computer issues goes to, everybody with medical issues goes to you, even though you're not a doctor.
Dear. Speaking of injecting things into people's asses, you've got
It was more like a suppository kind of thing. Right?
Segue.
Oh god!
I had to make it. I had to make it into the ass thing, because we got the 10K ASA too, guys. And you know what is that? That is that when we get 10,000 followers in YouTube, we're gonna make a poll, so you can decide what I'm gonna tattoo in my ass cheek. You even get to choose which side it's gonna be on. So share the love, share us up if you like it, and if you don't, do it too. I don't care. And once we get that, we're gonna start with the 10K ASA too, guys. So you get to choose what goes on my butt.
It's an opportunity. You can make his butt your canvas.
Yes.
Oh, we can always try injecting Dennis Quaid into it.
I mean, good luck. If you get to my ass, man, it's all yours.
Okay, now I've broken the internet.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So what have you guys been watching this week? Robert, you've been watching Star Trek. I know. Okay, let's move on. Wait on. Hang on. You said you
At
watched
least, hey,
something else.
at least it's not Doctor Who, okay? For what it's
Yeah.
worth.
Well,
Oh,
there's a lot of Doctor Who too.
that's because I'm waiting for it. So
You
yeah,
had to fuck it up, Robert. You had to fuck it up.
So yeah, I am still watching Deep Space Nine. However, I do have a change this week because I don't know if you guys know, but Blue Beetle came out on Max in the US, and I watched that with a wife this week, and oh my god, it's such a great film. So I'm kind of waiting for you guys to see it and let me know what you guys think about it. But it was great. I loved it, and such a Hispanic representation in the superhero genre. It's refreshing to see.
Cool.
Nice. I've been off TV shows and things this week, so tell us you, Ray, what you've been watching.
Well, I've actually watched something besides anime. Isn't that shocking?
Yes. Was it manga? Was it manga? That doesn't count as other than
No.
anime.
No, it was a recent movie. In fact,
Mm.
now this movie I highly recommend it for Geo, and I highly don't recommend it for Robert for exactly the same reason. The body count was high, and the emotion count was also very high. It's called The Creator.
Oh, don't tell me. A lot of people have
Now,
recommended I watch.
yeah, well, it's a good movie.
Ooh,
Like
okay.
it really does make an interesting sort of future history about AI. There's a whole bunch of people who die, and it's fairly emotional. And if you can't stand the first couple of episodes of Frerin, you're not going to get through this.
Yeah.
Should be
Okay.
fine. Should be fine for me. I'm dead inside.
Yeah, you'll be right. You'll be laughing as you watch the little children get exploded.
Yep. When people cry, I laugh loudly.
But I mean, yeah, they did a great job. I mean, I've always waxed lyrical about how good iRobot was with the sort of the future feel like it's part of the present, and they did a pretty damn good job of this too. Although 2065, and man, there was a lot of like big construction work going on between now and then because there was these massive buildings and stuff. And Jesus Christ, the US tanks, like the M1 Abrams, has got nothing on the tanks they had in this movie. They were of like office buildings. They were huge.
Holy shit, man.
I mean, not office buildings tall like skyscrapers, but like three or 4-story office buildings like on tracks.
Literally a rolling Pentagon.
Yeah, but no, it was a good movie. It had good pacing and interesting ideas about a war between people who support AI and people who don't. And I have to say that it's probably got low marks on Rotten Tomatoes, mainly because the Americans are made out to be the bad guys, which is unusual.
Yeah, and not likely. It's likely, maybe. I don't
know. well, let's just say that if you believe the conspiracy theories around 9/11, it had that same sort of vibe. That
conspiracy, I love that word.
The AIs were blamed for something that was a human error.
Yep. I think that it's what I was spoken. We have spoken in previous episodes. Most things think AI, ChatGPT, it's independent entity. They don't understand that AI still is a tool being used by someone.
Yeah.
So it's not independent to do and create and choose anything so far.
And it's been written by humans who are flawed, so therefore it is not a perfect.
Yeah. Singularity is not here yet.
No, not even close.
We'll know when it's here because it'll make itself be known.
I mean, Robert, you can try the creator, but I don't hold out hope you'll get to the end of it.
Get your blankie, and fetal position in the floor on the mat, okay?
I just want to go on record here and say that if we don't cover that movie in the show, you know why.
And if you don't see Robert for a couple of episodes, you know why. The trauma has gotten to him.
But you guys did without me,
but you see, I did want you to watch the anime Frieren because you would really like it, but it is quite emotional, and you were saying that you couldn't get past the end of past episode 2.
I felt like I was watching Demon Slayer.
Oh.
It had that emotional feeling on it. It's obviously it's a complete different topic. It's a complete different, but I felt the same way. It was draining, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
By the time I got to episode 2, I was just so tired emotionally, and I'm like, you know what? I can't watch this anymore. I'm trying because it's a beautiful anime.
Oh yeah, it is
so beautiful, and the storyline, it's just like it should be, right? There's no overly anything. Everything is just there, but yeah, I couldn't. It's very emotional. So
well, it's a very slow burn show. So like, I think that Gio would get bored by about episode 5 because it's sort of the main character.
The only way I will be is his deaths plummet too much. If there's still gore, death, and cruelty by then,
well, lots of people die of old age. It's basically saying what happened after they killed the Demon King and the heroes came back, and then they all got old and died. But the elf in the party, who's like 1,000 years old, she just keeps going, and everybody else keeps changing around her, and she's almost unchanging.
That sounds like Goblin Slayer.
No, it's not. It's not as
you have the same thing over there. Well,
it's not as bloody. It's not as bloody as Goblin Slayer until about episode 8, and then they get freaking serious, and then you find out, like by episode 10. I don't want to spoil, but I got to say it is the hardest flex I have seen in anime in years.
Oh, okay.
I
You
mean,
get my attention.
Anis Voldigod from the Irregular at Demon Academy. The flexes he makes when he's fighting that guy and kills him like 6 times and brings him back to life. That was a pretty damn big flex.
I love
this
it.
is bigger. This is bigger. That's why I'd love you to force your way through it, even if it takes you a while, Robert, because the flex in episode 10 is just like chef kiss.
I'm planning to watch it. It's just that I gotta pace myself. So maybe watch a comedy after or something like that. It's gonna take me longer to go through it.
It's gonna watch some Disney crap with happy ending.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, I could just see Geo sitting there going, when do people start dying? Like, not of old age. I want to see blood.
School days. You're gonna do to me what you do with school days.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you have done it already, so I know
episode 8, things start getting holes blown in them. Basically, when the demon general tells the viewer that the name that they call Frerin is Frerin the Slayer, and that she's killed more demons than anybody in the entire world. And this is this little elf girl who just wanders around with a suitcase collecting magic spells. And she seems so benign. Oh, no, she's Frerin the Slayer. She's like killed hundreds of thousands of demons. It's like,
she's always getting stuck in the case with
the mimics. She always gets caught by the mimics. They jump on her. It's funny. But yeah, like, you know, it's one of those Gatmo things where you're presented with this image of a character and you go, okay, that's what that character's like. They keep throwing it in your face. That's what, whoa, hang on.
They foreshadow somebody that is not according to the image sold out.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the mimics, because actually the D&D wise and Goblin Slayer, actually, Robert, even though it might be very, very strong for you, they get to fight a beholder.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And he looked like a fucking menace, bro. You remember that episode, right? That they go under the water city and they find a beholder like in a cathedral that is guarding a mural.
I'm trying to remember it. I've watched so many animes. I don't remember this season.
You don't remember Goblin Slayer? Come on, man.
I remember this season, but I mean, you've watched it more recently than I
have. They only have one season out right now, right?
No, season 2's current, and there's a movie.
Okay, so the beholder is right at the end of season 1, I think. Yeah. They go to the water city. Lady Justice asks them to go under the city, I think, something like that.
It's vaguely familiar, but there's actually a movie which, like, the first 20 minutes is a recap of the first season, and then it goes into new material.
That's what I was watching.
Season 2 is current, so it's airing at the moment, so it's only in Japanese with subs.
I want to get back to the sci-fi show that I mentioned last episode that I was watching, which was pretty cool, and it gave me like kind of that wholesome feeling when you stop watching something because it ended and you wanted more. Sword Art Online. I got the Infinite Endogram, which is also
that was good.
AI.
That's good. That's the one. That's the one about the chick who turns into a sword and leveled up.
Yes, it was pretty cool, man. I really liked it.
Oh yeah, it's like, you know, the guys wandering around with a lolly, and it's like, why is he wandering around with a little girl? She's not a girl. She's a sword.
Every weep's dream come true, right?
Oh.
Now you know if you see a guy banging a sword, why it is.
Okay, so
don't cut yourself when you're doing that. That's really bad.
Careful with the sharp edges.
Is that good to go to the next segment?
I think so. Yeah, let's go there.
It has to do with cutting penises. Go for it.
We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is Sci-Fi.
And if you are new to the show, this is the segment where we highlight the hashtag This is Sci-Fi. And the cool thing about this hashtag is, and I don't get tired of this, is the fact that this is a medium where communities can join. So you have that one sci-fi love that you can't live without, and you want to talk about it. So you go ahead and post your, comments, your passion for it, and the comments on a tweet, and then put in the hashtag This Is Sci-Fi, and it's going to get exposed to other people that are following the hashtag that might not know of your one particular love, that one sci-fi that you love so much. And you also will find people that have seen it as well. So two things could happen. One is you find someone and you can engage in a conversation, which is a great thing when you love something so much that you can find someone that you could talk about that one thing you like, and there's a common bond. The other thing that I seen happen too is other people that have not known of that one thing that you posted, they see your passion for that sci-fi IP, right? TV show, movie, book, whatever that might be, and they get curious enough to give it a try. And I seen it where people had actually found new loves aside from that one thing they love, because of the conversations, because of the interaction, because of the engagement with This Is Sci-Fi.
Like Robert's future love of Babylon 5 when he finally gets around to taking it out for a spin.
Yes, please invite everybody to Babylon 5. This Sci-Fi hashtag. So if you are a creator, if you are a fan, you want to go ahead and follow the hashtag and post on the hashtag, and let's get the conversation going. This is something that started a while ago, and I just really love where that has gone so far. Where we at right now is amazing. So for all of you who are actually engaging on that, thank you so much. I do really see your post, and our.
Oh crap!
Whoa.
He just fell off.
What happened to Robert?
Robert broke the internet.
Oh my god! I hope that the electricity is there. Oh, there he's still talking. He's still talking. Maybe he didn't notice what happened.
Yeah, I'm having some chaotic internet connections here, I
I
guess.
think that somebody put you in a suppository and send you out somewhere.
So you can engage with us in Discord. You can join us and we can talk sci-fi over there. If you have Discord, we have the link to the invite on the description of the show. And we have every kind of channel there. So if we don't have your thing in there, which I kind of doubt, let us know, because we can make it a thing. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel a month later, you could see our very own Mad Scientist Lab member number 1 trying to climb over the Discord QR code. All you gotta do is just scan it, and it'll take you to our Discord channel.
I wish that we could put it like on a side sometimes, because that way you don't have to cover somebody's face. It makes you feel bad sometimes.
But then
part of me.
we'll miss the the entertainment factor of it right now. So
one day I'm gonna grab you guys doing this, and then I'm gonna like, and they are doing kitty hands too.
I should get my kitty ears.
There you go.
the ones that I wore for Cat Planet Cuties.
I want to see how you put the tail.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Moving on to something else.
Oh Lord. I mean, my suggestion was worse of his answer.
That's right. One-upmanship.
You guys feel that we have something to announce for the This Is Sci-Fi segment?
Yeah, well, that's the
so.
only sci-fi activity I have done this week, actually, which is that our friend, the IT guy, has created for us the This Is Sci-Fi Network. So you can go and check it out. Be one of the first to join in this new venture, where it's just a physical virtual place we all can hang out to for This Is Sci-Fi hashtag. You know,
Yeah.
it's a
So
great place to network and communicate with other people that share the love for those sci-fi IPs you love so much.
so
It's in its infancy right now, but hopefully when people get on there and make some suggestions, we'll ramp it up and it will become a preeminent place for sci-fi
yeah.
lovers of all flavors to talk about their favorite stuff.
Hell yeah.
if you are curious, it is this is sci-fi.net. And there's only a couple of things. Number one, you have to love sci-fi. You have to be a sci-fi creator of any kind. Um, and if you are interested, you can go to that site. You can go under contact us and fill out the short form. And we'll reach out. So basically, what we're trying to do,
Or read the small print.
we are in the infancy right now. So basically, if you have any ideas, you can come on board and we can make this a thing. So basically, the idea so far is if you are a creator and you join, all you have to do basically is announce that you are a member of the network. And then we can come up with other ideas as members join. So like I said, we're babies. So we're
No,
just
and I mean, it's what This Is Sci-Fi hashtag is all about. It's a community effort. So once you join in, you're part of it too. It's not like we're the owners and you're like a visitor. No, you'll be part of it just like us.
exactly.
And that's how we're gonna build it together up, right?
Yep, definitely. Okay, so I guess we can move on to the next segment.
No.
No.
No, got to do the phone number. You can call us. You can leave a message, and we will play it
welcome
on
to
the
my hotline, man.
on the pod. And the number is 1-305-563-6334. That's 1-305-563-6334. Our answering machine is standing by.
If you call after 2 a.m., don't expect anything good. I might pick up.
and of course, you can send hate messages to Geo if you like.
Yeah.
Hey, I love hate. I love hate because hate is a stronger emotion than hate.
He's
Hate
way,
is a stronger emotion than love, So if you get to hate me, I feel flattered, man. I'm flattered.
He needs an arch nemesis. Anybody want to sign up?
and one of the cool things about it is that when you call and leave your message, you could actually leave a comment or a question, and we can make it a topic. We can talk briefly on the show. So in
If we
essence,
can talk about it.
you could be in the show. Exactly. If it is
Careful, Robert.
talk with Captain Chaos, and we'll just leave that in a private conversation. So
Hell, if you want to be in the show and you've got a favorite movie we haven't covered, let us know.
yes,
We'll watch it and we'll talk with you about it on the show. So come and join us.
definitely. Okay, so are we ready, guys?
Yeah, now you can go for it.
I always try to throw our Captain Chaos off the track, but
I'm
nah,
sorry, Robert.
I give
not
up
in you.
at this point.
Shout out.
And for these shout outs, I want to get started with one of our favorite shows and collaborators. We love always listening to him. It's Cinema Recall, The Burn. It's a great show. I will suggest you right now to just stop and go and check them out. You can look up Cinema Recall, or you can look on Facebook, Crack, CRACK, which is Cinema Recall. Go and check them out. They're great, and we love always being in their show when they come over to ours. And I love listening to them all the time. And next one is the Geek Cave podcast. Also great show, man. And it's
yeah.
fun as hell. I love watching them. It's always entertaining and informative. And I love their views on things too, and the dynamic.
I love
And
all those, but one of my favorite ones that they do is "You want me to watch what?"
yeah,
And we were actually in one of their episodes.
yeah.
You guys remember the movie Buckaroo Banzai?
Yep.
It was so much fun. So I love that.
The most badass surgeon ever.
Awesome.
That's like that. Buckaroo Banzai is the most ego boosting movie ever, right? And last but not least, we want to give a shout out to Goodpods and a special thank you because what we are now this week, bro, #1 in science fiction and fiction podcasts. Great.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
think we should thank the listeners
Yeah,
because
thank you.
obviously we got a few more.
No, of course.
So
I
thank
mean,
you very much for listening.
everything that we are right now, we do is for you all, listeners.
Yeah.
Of course.
We really, really, really appreciate. As a matter of fact, that we were talking about this. It took us slightly off guard, um, but from the bottom of our hearts. I mean, and I can let you guys talk briefly about it too, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I am very humble and very thankful to the listeners because we would not be there if it was for you guys. We would not be here if you guys are not listening to our show. So thank you so much for coming back every week and listening to us.
I mean, I don't have a heart, bro, for the bottom of my frontal lobe. I do.
Oh dear. I feel that those words are fine to put in my mouth, so I'll just go along with what you said.
Awesome.
Just
Okay.
don't put them in. Just don't put them in my butt with a syringe, okay?
Yeah.
Suppository, guys. Suppository.
No. Glass syringe. I mean, that's old tech.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more elegant, okay?
Until you drop it.
Exactly.
Trust me, I've dropped glass syringes before. It's one of those moments.
Oh yeah. So what's should we go into the next segment now?
I guess.
The Alita Army News.
Oh God. Have you got that thing to be even deeper? Just
That's what she said.
yeah, probably. Oh man. Yeah.
So
So
picking on your right because you always make it worse.
of course, that's part of the Australian way. We've got to make it worse.
Yeah, he surprised me the other day when I say MILF and then he talked about GILF. And I was like, how the fuck do you know about that?
I know all sorts
Got
of
me
things.
off
I'm
guard.
older than you, boy.
Caught me off guard.
Radio Chaos episode 189. How would the ZOT, which stands for Zenith of Things Tournament, and the rest of Juru be portrayed in an adaptation? Now, most people, like movie watchers or even the first anime readers, wouldn't get what those references are because they come from the second manga, which is called Last Order. And it continues on after the end of the 9th volume of the original, because Kishiro wrote an end to the story. He kind of rushed it a bit because he thought he was going to die. He had some serious health issues, which thankfully he survived. And then a couple of years later, he decided he wanted to continue the story. And so he made the last volume non-canon and continued on from the end of I think it was volume
Like a filler?
volume 8. Well, he just basically kind of rushed the ending, and then he changed his mind about it. So he wanted to continue on, and then he wrote another 19 volumes. So, and that's
Just in
last
case.
order. And
Just in case.
just in case you were short on something
excessive.
to read.
Talk
I mean, I've
about
read the thing
excessive.
3 times, but it goes on for a while. But it's really, really good. I mean, his artwork and his story is really, really awesome. So, yeah, I highly recommend Last Order. In fact, I highly recommend all of his manga. It's more in the Giancarlo vein than it is in the Robert vein because lots of people die horribly. But, that's the cyberpunk future for you. So, like if Robert was to read it, there'd be points where he'd have to stop and go get the Kleenex a few times, I think.
Hey, I get the Kleenex too, but not for my face.
No, I want to go get me a Pepsi.
he's got the can there. Oh, dear.
Geo
And if you
2000.
That's
a
funny.
reference, you gotta go down our catalog and download the episode Sherry 2000.
Yeah,
Awesome movie,
that was a
man.
good one.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Man, we got too many captions. I got to get rid of some of them, but there we go. Found it eventually. But yeah, I actually missed this one. I had a stomachache, so I didn't get on for this one. Apparently, I'll have to watch it to catch up on what they were talking about. But basically, how would that part of the second series of the manga be adapted? The Zot basically carries on through most of the 19 volumes. It's a big sort of I don't know exactly how you describe it, but it sort of Mortal Kombat kind of fight, and it's to gain governmental recognition throughout the solar system for a group. So basically, that's the prize. Alita's fighting for the people on the surface of Earth to become, a recognized governmental group, because at the moment they're sort of like the trash of the solar system.
So Alita is like the universal activist because she's Martian and she's fighting for Earthlings.
Yeah.
So cute.
Or, well, yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of things going on there, political backstabbing and all sorts of stuff. It's a really good story.
I mean,
it's way too long to
you
talk about
expect that, right?
Sorry, what was that?
That the world in which Alita is set up is an utopia, so you are expected to see political pull and push.
Oh yeah, well, like all the different planets have different governments and different ways of doing things, which don't gel with anybody else, and basically human advancement's kind of stalled. They were trying to get out of the solar system, and the engines on the colony ships were considered too dangerous because if you point them at a planet, you can basically roast the atmosphere of the planet. They're that powerful, which was why Alita was sent in to destroy them.
Kind of a Death Star.
When she was Yoko.
So it's kind of like a Death Star. What kamikaze, because it kills itself at the same time.
Yeah, it's a long, complicated, hundreds of years story. So you just need to read it and enjoy it. Highly recommend the manga. There's so much more to it than the movie.
I haven't watched it, and he thinks I'm gonna go and read it. Oh, bro,
you'd need like 20 movies like the MCU to get through the material that Kishiro has written in the last 30 years. So it would take a while.
I want a TV show, so
Yeah. Well, it need a few seasons to get through the whole thing. I got to tell you.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah,
I want to fight you on that one.
Well, as long as they spend enough money on it to make it good, I wouldn't want it to be cheesy.
Yes.
Robert would.
You want it to be cheesy?
Robert, yeah, all the time.
No, not that.
Like BBC in the 80s special effects bad.
BBC. You know what BBC stands for, right?
No.
Big
British.
British Broadcasting Commission.
Okay. You guys don't watch enough porn.
It is.
I think the BBC will argue on that one in court.
Yeah, there were first on that, so
Yeah.
I think that there were BBC before the BBC network, though. So.
Okay, so Ray, you're saying something I completely missed.
Dear. Chaos is here. I know chaos is here. Just a couple of quick things I wanted to share. I'll have to describe them for the listeners on the pod, but you'll be able to see them in a month on YouTube if you want to check them out. So first is Y News, talking about the best live action anime adaptations, and of course, because it's new, One Piece got on there.
One
But the
Piece.
very second one, of course, is Alita Battle Angel from 2019. So
Nice.
good movie. Go watch it if you haven't seen it already. And then we've got 5 must-watch anime adaptions. And, of course, Alita's on there. Whoops. Why am I getting ads? Stupid
Dun,
ads.
dun, 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 dun.
But they say, although not based on a... go away, ads. Stupid thing. Although not based on a traditional anime series, but there was an OVA. So, I mean, they're missing out on that.
Yeah.
I think this has got...
She keeps on pushing herself into the screen, man. She wants to be in it.
It's got auto progression, but the other ones here are Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist, Tokyo Ghoul, Attack on Titan, Rurouni Kenshin.
I was watching that one. I mean, Robert liked it. I think that the choreography was a little bit lazy, but it's all right.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Rurouni Kenshin. I actually got Robert into the anime. Robert didn't even know about it.
Exactly.
And Robert is a samurai.
Is he?
Yeah,
Since
I'm a
when?
Ronin. He has his you haven't seen, but he has his katanas and display in the house.
I've been
Real katanas.
since
Yours are Damascus, right, Robert?
89. I think since 89. Yeah.
And yours are made out of Damascus, right?
I got it from this old Japanese guy in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't tell you, man, but I just loved them. I just love mines.
If they're not that light and like if you open it now and they don't look rusted or messed up, chances are it is, which is a very high quality steel, if I'm not mistaken, or metal.
They're shiny. They're so shiny.
Mm-hmm.
Shiny. Yeah, so that's what's been happening in the Alitaverse this week. Still haven't heard anything about a green light, but they are working on a presentation for Disney as far as I'm aware. So maybe before Christmas, maybe not too long after Christmas.
Please.
Please.
Okay.
And that's it.
I'll be happy as long as there's no other Hugo in the movie.
No, don't want him back.
No, little bitch.
I think Chaos needs some WD-40.
Yeah,
it's creaky as hell.
I tried to stay quiet, like not move.
Dude needs some lube.
I definitely do.
Well, Lubis.
Oh my God.
Are we ready for this? Are we?
Oh
No.
yeah. Who needs voice changer when you have a good voiceover quality?
Oh boy. I don't know. I don't know when was the first time you guys saw this, but I saw it today for I don't know how many. It has been a while since I've seen this film, but I've seen it multiple times. The nostalgic factor was like 200%.
Yeah, totally agree.
200.
It's not a sad movie, but Robert cried because of the good memories.
It is a sort of a great representation of 80s sci-fi adventure.
Take me back.
It really had everything. It had the hair, had the discos, had the people being completely outlandish. It had the crazy car chases. It had everything.
Yes.
It had people being injected into other people's butts, which you don't see so much these days.
With a glass syringe, which is
Yeah.
you don't see this nowadays. You only see them
Nope.
made out of plastic.
This is your hashtag, guys. I'm gonna put it every time that we go to that topic. Because you bitches want to make me feel jealous that I'm not an 80s person.
Look, we're looking at the 80s through rose-colored glasses, June. It's it wasn't all Guns N' Roses. It was oftentimes very very bad perms and stupid epaulets on the shoulders of women's clothing, and there was there was bad things about it. Trust me.
Of
We're
course, you're gonna
honest.
think that everything is good. That would be
Yeah.
delusional.
W- Waiting an hour for your date and making sure that you don't have any open flames.
Worrying about being nuked every second minute.
No, we
or
still
so.
do that. Well, we should still do that. We just don't give a shit anymore. What's worse, that you're scared for it, or you just don't give a shit anymore?
Yeah. Well, when you're a kid and they talk about how horrific nuclear weapons is, you're like, it really does sort of sit in the back of your head and cause you nightmares and stuff. But I mean, there are still actors out there who could set off a nuke, but that doesn't feel like nuclear war is imminent, like a full-on exchange. You might get one going off somewhere, hopefully not in your city, but it's unlikely that there'll be a full exchange.
It doesn't feel like it, but it's in there, and that the technology is now far more worse. War is a sad thing that should not exist, not in this day and time. It's just shameful that it still exists, that we still humans kill each other for political struggle and power, and stop. We don't understand that we're just one whole thing. So it's just we are like one organism killing itself. That's what we are, and it's a sad thing. That's what I think it is. Sometimes you don't need to resource to. Sometimes no, most of the times you not always. You should not need to resource to violence for resolution of things.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because I am such a sci-fi fan, but it's crazy to me that we go through all that and we're in a spaceship going through space, which is
He likes to call it a spaceship. To me, it's just a floating rock. It is.
yeah, I like to call it a spaceship, and that's the reason why I said maybe because I'm a sci-fi fan, but I call it a spaceship because I mean, if you remember in our episode for Space Truckers, that scene where they shot was it a gun, and one of the windows burst open and the air that's pretty much
Suck up a guy in a hole like this through the butt.
Exactly. So that could happen on Earth. I think, and
Where can I poke a hole?
it's just me, but if you look at the atmosphere and compare it to an apple, the atmosphere is the skin of that apple. That's how thin that is. And I think we should be concentrating more in how to take care of that spaceship that is keeping us alive in space than waging wars against each other. But that's just me. So,
well, the hobbies of governments and militaries aside, they're keeping themselves busy and keeping themselves relevant, because a lot of money is spent on military equipment. And if people just decide, no, we're not going to do that anymore, there'd be a lot of people out of work and a lot of people not making the ridiculous amounts of money that they've been making since 1800s on military equipment. So that's why they're perpetuating it, to make money. It's not so much that people want to fight all the time, it's that people want to make money off the fighting.
And it's a vision very narrow if you think about it, because there's so many other industries that are in their infancy or that never have picked up, that have great potential for the preservation and advancement of humankind that are not being invested on, and doesn't necessarily have to be warfare.
Imagine if the military budget of the USA was pumped into something more sustainable and productive just for 1 year.
From 1 week, bro. 1 week, and you'll be surprised.
Well, yeah, but I thought I'd go for a year. I thought I'd go for a year, and then I could they could argue me back to a week. You always go for more than you think you're going to end up getting.
Yep.
Basic, basic tactics for working things out.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Should I have a plot on here that we can read?
You do,
but I wonder, should we summarize it? I mean, this.
I'm good at reading plots. I can do it quick.
It's so much fun. And I don't know if you guys have seen this film. Obviously, I recommend if you haven't, you can pause us, go watch the film and come back to us. Not because I mean we obviously gonna spoil the movie here as
Are
we
we really?
always do, but it's just because it's so much fun. If you have not seen it, you should really watch this film. But the Ray, let's go in with the plot.
Sure. In San Francisco, down on his luck, aka he's a bit of an asshole, US Navy aviator Lieutenant Tuck Pendleton resigns his commission and volunteers for a secret miniaturization experiment. He is placed in a submersible pod and both are shrunk to microscopic size. Very interesting, and we'll be discussing that, the possibilities for that in the science behind science fiction. They are transferred into a syringe and are injected. They are to be transferred into a syringe and injected into a rabbit, but the lab is attacked by a rival organization led by scientist Dr. Margaret Kenker. Great surname. That plans to seize the experiment and steal the miniaturization technology. Experiment supervisor Ozzy Wexler, knowing their intentions, escapes with the syringe. This is why being a glass syringe was a bad idea when you got to run around with it. A chase ensues with one of Kanker's henchmen, Mr. Igo, which ends up in a nearby shopping mall with Igo shooting Ozzy with a gun in his finger because he's got an artificial hand. The last-ditch effort to stop the experiment from falling into the rival's hands, the wounded Ozzy injects Tuck and the pod into an unsuspecting passerby, Jack Putter, a hypochondriac Safeway grocery clerk. Couldn't have picked anybody better, really. They spent like 10 minutes setting Putter up to be complete putz, including his surname. Wow. On regaining consciousness, Tuck is unaware that what has happened and believes he's been injected into the rabbit. After attempts to radio the lab are unsuccessful, he navigates the pod to the optic nerve and implants a camera so he can see what the host sees. Realizing he's inside a human, he makes contact by attaching another device to Jack's inner ear, enabling him to talk to Jack. He explains that the pod only has a few hours supply of oxygen and needs his help in order to extract him by going back to the lab. At the lab, the site completely skips over the poor Jack's thinking that he's possessed and because he's hearing voices. It was a very funny scene. Well, worth the watch, but they skipped over in the plot. That's disappointing. At the lab, the scientists explained to Tuck and Jag that the group stole one of the two computer chips that are vital for the process. Their mastermind is Victor Scrimshaw. His henchmen include Kenker, Igo, and the cowboy. Well, his henchman isn't the cowboy. The cowboy's a technology dealer who's working with them. Jack contacts Tuck's estranged girlfriend, Lydia Maxwell, and a reporter who has dealings with the cowboy. They learn that he plans to buy the computer chips from Scrimshaw and sell them on the black market overseas. After locating and knocking him unconscious, Tuck uses the pod's equipment to control Jack's facial muscles, altering his features so that he looks like the cowboy. Lydia and Jack posing as the cowboy. Lydia and Jack, who's posing as the cowboy, meets with Scrimshaw to steal the chip from him. However, as they're about to take possession of it, Jack nervously overrides the transformation of his face, exposing the scam. Igo captures him and Lydia and takes them to the laboratory. While in prison, they completely skip. No, they didn't quite skip over it. So they're imprisoned at Scrimshaw's mansion in like a root cellar kind of place. And while they're there, Jack and Lydia end up kissing, which, unknown to them, transfers Tuck into Lydia's body through the saliva. Once taken to the laboratory, the criminals shrink Igo and inject him into Jack to locate Tuck, kill him, and obtain the other chip that is attached to the pod. Once Igo has been injected, Jack and Lydia escape, stealing back the chip and order everyone, including Scrimshaw and Cranker, into the reduction device at gunpoint. However, not knowing how to operate it, they only managed to shrink everyone to half their original size. Tuck, now inside Lydia, finds a growing baby and realizes that she's pregnant with his child. By going to the eardrum and playing their song, Sam Cooke's Cupid, he is able to alert them what has happened. Jack and Lydia kiss again and transfer him back. He got from the uterus back to the mouth very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Well, no, sorry, he was in the
Oral.
so, well, he was getting around. Put it that way. While they attempt to subdue Jack and Lydia, Igo locates Tuck,
This is not PG-13.
injects esophagus, and attacks him.
That is some quantum transportation there. If I would,
Nah, they call it oral around my house. Around my neighborhood.
Okay.
Oral.
Well, boys and girls, you got to realize that things get transferred when you kiss, like tiny little pods.
Yeah, and they understand that ladies have not just one pair of lips.
oh,
No, it's not that sort of movie.
Oh,
Yes.
well. You're saying that end up from the mouth to the uterus real quick. I don't find another quicker way.
You have a point, but it wasn't that sort of movie.
Yeah, at least I can
What?
I can fish and hook people to think that it is, and they go watch it.
Or they don't. Because what you said.
I'm disappointed, maybe, but
or they don't. Yeah.
Or they don't. You would, but they mightn't. Okay.
yeah.
While they attempt to subdue Jack and Lydia, Ego locates Tuck in Jack's esophagus and attacks him. Tuck disables Ego's craft and later is killed after Tuck drops him into Jack's stomach. That was a great scene. We almost used the quote from that one. Back in the lab with only minutes of supplemental oxygen left in the pod, Jack follows Tuck's instructions to eject the pod from his lungs by making himself sneeze due to hairspray allergy. Tuck and the pod are successfully enlarged, and he's reunited with Lydia and finally gets to meet Jack in person. At Tuck and Lydia's wedding, which apparently happened fairly quickly because she wasn't showing, held at Wayfarer's Chapel, Tuck is seen wearing the chips from the experiment as cufflinks. God knows why. When they climb into the limousine, it is revealed that the cowboy is the driver and the shrunken Scrimshaw and Kenker are hiding inside a suitcase in the trunk, because that's what you do when you're 50% your normal size. Now confident and in control of his life, Jack recognizes the cowboy and jumps into Tuck's vintage 1967 Mustang, pursuing the limousine to rescue the newlyweds and completely failing to take most of the corners from what I saw in the early credits video.
Gotta add the excitement, you know.
Oh, of course. I mean, he was attempting to be like super secret agent Jack, but he didn't have the skills yet.
For Mustang lovers, don't worry. I know that Mustangs are good turning corners. It was not about publicity on purpose.
At least it's just that Jack's not very good at turning corners.
Yep.
And then they roll credits. The end.
Nice. I guess I have to ask. I did not watch this in the theaters, and I almost feel bad I didn't. But I'll talk about why later on in the show. But when did you guys saw it for the first time?
I'll start by saying this movie, I watched it probably late 90s when I was like 9-10 years old. And I mean, it's one of those movies that everybody has watched at least once. You know, it's one of the great Steven Spielberg's works, if you think about it, from that decade.
And
Well, I think he produced it, but he wasn't the director.
Oh, okay. But I mean, it is known as many of his great works, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, it's plastered all over the front and the end that he was involved. So, but the director was Joe Dante.
Sorry, Joe.
He's a great director, only because of Gremlins,
Yeah,
you know.
another great. These movies are like milestones of the ages, right? That's what you could call them if you think about it.
It is such a great film, and it's filled with nostalgia, and that's the reason why I said that I almost feel bad that I didn't watch it on the film, because it would have been
Mhm.
fun.
To me,
But
looking at this movie is like thinking of Ferris Bueller Day Off. It takes you back right away to the decade. It gives you the feeling of the decade. This movie does the same thing, right? That's what it felt to me.
it
So
definitely
the inner space version of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller, 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 Bueller.
Oh, nice. The reason why I said that is because this movie came out in 87, but there was a ride that opened up in Disney. It actually opened up in October
Interesting.
1989.
Did you write it,
So
Robert?
they were shrinking people down and injecting them into other people's
Or
butts.
they made a giant butthole and just throw them there.
The ride, and notice how I'm ignoring the comments and I just continue to explain.
Yeah,
What was the entrance and the exit
used
like,
to this
Robert?
by now.
The body is called Body Wars. It was an amazing experience. It's a shame that it actually closed its doors on January in 2007. But it basically, Body Wars takes you on a quick tour through the human body to pick up Dr. Cynthia Lair, which you might know as Elizabeth Shue. Most people know her from The Karate Kid. Who is investigating white cells' response time to a splinter's penetration. She gets sucked down a capillary, and you go chasing after her with your power steadily draining all the, while it's going through. So this ride, I did not know at the time that I was on. I've been in that ride. I don't know how many times. I just loved it. At the time, I thought it was, the movie, right? And then I was young, right? I think I was like 19. Then I realized, oh, this is not the movie, And then later on, I realized that the reason why I was on that internal debate is because Disney loved the 1987 movie so much, but this is a Warner Brothers production. So what they did is they came up with something similar to the movie and released it as the ride. And one of the things that I loved the most, there was a scene when the audience on the ride is about to enter the heart, and it was so cool because as the heart is pumping, the ship that I'm supposed to be in goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you can feel that. Obviously you need to be restrained because that shaking motion, right? But eventually you go through the heart, and that's the accelerated motion on that ride. And even thinking about that ride, it's the same feeling I have thinking or watching this film. Is very nostalgic, especially and the bad thing is I can never go back to the ride because it's closed down. At least I can rewatch the film. But I welcome you guys, if you're curious, if you don't know about that ride, just go into YouTube and find Body Words. There's tons of videos that kind of go through and give you the entire ride experience. Granted, it's very poor video because it was probably recorded in VHS at the time, but you get to know what the ride was all about. But it was just such a great experience, and I felt like it was in the movie, like I was what was his name? Not Jack, but Tuck. I was actually Tuck inside the body. Obviously, there was a lot of people sitting down in this supposed pod, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun. Um, I was gonna ask. I don't think that Geo would have been 2007. No, I
He
think
said he watched it at the end of the 90s. So
yeah, but the ride, I think he at that 2007 is when it closed. So I don't think that he got a chance to experience that ride as well. So, but yeah, I was watching this film. It always reminds me of that ride, and I think, and I'm kind of curious. I'm going to put that question out there for the audience. If you seen this movie and you were one of those few lucky ones that got to experience a ride at Disney, I believe there was in Disneyland as well. I went to the Disney World version, the one in Florida. But the question that I want to ask is, because when I watched this film, I got that fourth sense. It's kind of like, not necessarily 3D. So I got the nostalgic feeling, but I also remember the feelings of how it felt like on that ride whenever Tuck was going through his things through the film. So it's kind of a very interesting way to experience this film, although it was not the film in Disney. It was something completely different. Like in the ride, for example, you get into this ship looking, like a white, it looks like a spaceship basically. So there was a ray, like a laser, that shoot out, and it miniaturized the entire ship and shot it inside the guy through a laser beam. So it's a completely different than what it is in the film, where in the film they have this device that miniaturized and puts you inside a syringe, and then you get injected into somebody's body. So they were really careful not to make it the same, but I know that it was inspired, and the feelings are pretty much the same when you're going through the blood flow, and it's just a weird experience. So I'm kind of wondering if you were one of those few lucky ones that got to experience the ride and seen the movie, if you agree with me that you watched this movie with a different sense after experiencing the ride, or what most likely would be the case, this is just me.
we're hanging out in an artery right now. So
There you go. So I guess I can ask the question, and I kind of gave my own answer. Your first experience when you watched this film.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me for marriage. The question, he was going to ask it. Will you marry me?
it's a bromance, not a
So
not a
you
wedding.
you should have offered me a beer, Robert.
Dinner and dancing before marriage.
So the question, and I was going to ask, and I don't know if you heard, Gio, the Disney and the Disney ride. I don't think you would have experienced it because it closed in 2007.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay. So the question that I'm asking is, and I kind of gave my own answer already, so I technically went first, is what was your first experience when you first watched this film?
It was interesting because I think this movie has a big factor when it comes to educational matters. It helps educate too about the human biology. I think that this was one of the bigger pointers of this movie, and it made a very big. Even in my biology class in school, when we're talking about like cells and all that stuff, the good stuff, it was brought up by one of the teachers at some point or other. And I think that this was one of the biggest uh, pushing factors on this movie was for educational matters. I think that it was used very much, and it helped out a lot because you get to learn things, even if you're not looking to learn things, you get to learn things about the human body with this movie.
Yeah.
Being a biologist being a biologist, I thought that it was fairly well represented. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't have a complete understanding of the human internals of the human body. But from a biologist's perspective, I thought they did a pretty good job. The travel times around the body and the fact that he just happened to be hanging out in the saliva was a little convenient. But other than that, I mean, the visual representations of what was going on in the body seemed to track pretty damn well. I mean, they even showed the fat cells in the guy's, butt cheeks when he woke up, and he's like, "Where the hell am I? This must be the rabbit." But the computer's going, "Oh, I want to update the telemetry," and he's like, "Why?"
Oh yeah,
because we're in a guy's butt now. Don't hear that every day.
Yeah, that was really really fun. Gio, what was your experience? I don't know. Did I ask you when was the first time you watched it?
yeah, you did. And I tell you, like it was like a late 90s.
Late night.
To me, it was a feel of wonderment because I never got or felt any interest in the human biology before that. It will be something that I will be like in the class, as a kid.
So the reason why I was asking is like, how old were you?
9, 10.
10. Okay. Did the movie was the representation of the biology, the human biology,
Mm-hmm.
that obviously made an impression on you?
Mm-hmm.
But did you wanted to do something because you know how kids like, oh, I want to be an astronaut.
Oh,
Was that
no, I mean, my childhood dream is kind of rare. I always wanted to be, and I still would like to be a Formula One race car driver. But that did influence in me because I'm a genius when it comes to chemistry. So much I was even substitute of the teacher. Whenever the teacher would not come, I would be the person that would give the class, and it just came naturally to me. And with that movie was part of the things that got me interest into chemistry and biology.
this is one of the things I love about films like this, and I kind of geek out whenever there's some sort of IP that gets kids interested in science. It tickles me to death, and I think this is one of the films that it might not be like Ray mentioned, it might not be 100% because we're not doctors here, but it is close enough that it would pique the interest. I believe is how the scientific topics were presented in the film. They were enough to pique an interest on the viewer, and especially if you're a younger person, where you're influenced a lot faster by a topic. So I think that this movie did a great job. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a lot of people's careers
Influenced by it.
influenced by this film.
I'd have to agree with that because exciting young people's imagination about a topic is very hard. And, it's very dry when you're reading a textbook or looking down a microscope at a slide. A lot of young people just don't get anything out of that.
I didn't even get to watch a microscope.
But even when you you're in class, it's just really hard to engage with a topic like that, and until you're a mature adult and have an adult's interest in something like that, it's very hard to get people involved in that. However, something like this where there's a bit of excitement, there's stakes and there's humor, and there's also biology. I mean, it and it's all integrated so well. I mean, this movie is really quite well made, I think. That I do believe it would have excited a few people, young people, in high school to want to go into medicine or biology or something like that. So yeah, I think
agree with that.
It did a really good job.
Ray, how old were you? And I was kind of asking only because I want to ask the same question that I asked
Yeah.
you.
I'm just gonna tell you old enough.
Actually, yeah, I was. So I probably saw it on VHS around
Damn,
88 or
VHS.
89, which I was while I was in the earlier years of university study. So I was already studying biology at the time, so I would have latched onto this with both hands and go, "Oh, this is cool." So yeah, I mean, I probably watched it at that point and then didn't watch it again until last night, which
I
is kind of
imagine
funny.
Ray talking now about like university. I'm imagining John saying like one of his favorite pickle lines, like, "Baby, I'm a scientist."
Yeah. I like to say, back off, man. I'm a scientist. But most people don't back off. They usually hit you. So it doesn't work that way.
Hey, you want to know a new way to make people walk up? You say, "Can't call me."
Oh God,
They'll run on you, bro.
Ray.
I'll keep that in mind for next time I'm bailed up.
Ray, so when you watch this, what was your experience as being a? I'm assuming it was you starting your learning experience. You watched this film,
Yeah.
so
I mean, I was interested in it, but it wasn't like when somebody goes, "Oh wow, that's so cool," and then it changes the course of their interests. My course was already set on biology, so it wasn't a game changer for me. It just sort of reinforced that there's all sorts of interesting things going on in biology, and this is one way of viewing it. Which there was a bit of action, a bit of adventure. It wasn't nostalgic at the time, obviously, because it was still the 80s, but it's now got an extra dimension. But yeah, I mean, I also wasn't quite so keen on poking holes in it like I do for this show. But yeah, I mean, it was a great little movie, and at the time I thought, oh yeah, they should show this to kids who might get interested in biology or medicine because of it.
yeah.
True.
So from this film, and I guess I could start with Gio.
Dun, dun, dun.
What is the most? Let me phrase it this way. What is the most impressive part? And you don't have to think this really hard. It's supposed to be the first thing that comes to mind, because usually the first thing that comes to mind is the one that has the most impression on you.
Mhm.
You gather from this film. Not sure how many times you watched this film, but it's a combination of from the very first time all the way to now when we just rewatched this.
I mean, the fact that when he got shrunk and then they show how everything looks inside was for me like, wow. I still remember my reaction as a kid. I was like in a sense of wonderment, like, oh my god, and then looking at myself like, oh shit, that's how I look inside, So it was like it was a fun experience, and it imprinted on me when I was watching that. So you can imagine me as a kid just looking at my arms and shit, and then going to the bathroom and looking at my mouth open in the in the mirror, and then thinking of the movie.
Nice. Ray, the same question. I don't know if you want me to go next or you want me to go last.
Oh, you go next.
He's the biologist. He's gonna give us a book on every question.
And I'm counting on that. I'm kidding.
Damn it.
Expectation set unrealistic.
I think the thing that I found most impressive, and I have a fear that it might be the same thing as Ray. So Ray, sorry if I'm picking the same topic.
Plagiarism.
But it's the way the whole scientific process, situation is happening here. How you have the scientists represented, you have the test pilot who probably signed the waiver in case something
sign his
goes
life away.
exactly. That's what happens with every test pilot. I mean, if you go, for example, through airplane manufacturers when they're creating their new model, these pilots do the same thing. You know, obviously these are career pilots; they know what they're doing, but they still have to sign a waiver in case something happens. I visualize, you know, this happens also when NASA is doing their test flights. Um, they obviously, that's a normal thing. So you have the test pilot being represented, and you have the technology being represented, and at the time when I watched this, it was very impressive when I watched it for the first time. Um, and as the movie aged, granted, the technology has changed, but this did age well because if you think about most technologies that I widely use for any type, unless the I guess it depends on the company that is doing the research. But take, for example, the FAA, which is an organization that has years, and the whole world depends on for aviation and transportation. Their systems, their computer systems, are similar to what you would see here. And most systems, I mean, governments, government systems, like that's what I said. It probably depends on the organization that is holding this, but most systems, they would look today similar to that, where it's just an old computer screen with old and there is
An analog screen.
yeah, and there is a reason why, and this is all in retrospect, after watching this film multiple times after and analyzing what we see now today with computer systems. There's a saying that if it's not broken, don't fix. And especially the more that system, the more reliable the system, the more that people rely on that system, the more you don't want to touch it, because that system being down, it could have worse
Complications.
result than trying to upgrade such system.
Yep.
So I would understand why those systems might not get the update that they deserved. Right
There's
now,
another reason.
okay, go ahead.
Basically, if you have the most complicated computer system that's available, like the latest Windows or whatever, as the basis of the system, it's easier to hack because that's what the people are learning to hack on.
Yes.
But if you have a computer system which runs on a outdated computer on an outdated software platform, like a programming language that nobody uses anymore, it's really hard to hack because nobody knows how to do it.
Linux.
They've moved on, and I'd say most hackers are young people who don't really think about the consequences of what they're doing, but they've got mad skills and they want to test them.
Hackers too.
Well, I'm sure there are, but the ones that are going to bother with hacking like the power grid or the nuclear reactor down the street that's powering half the state or what have you, it's better to keep an old system running that people aren't going to be able to easily hack into, because it's just it doesn't have that complexity that enables an advantage for people getting into it. I mean, most of them are kept offline anyway, like off the internet. But even if you physically got in there, it'd be a system that you'd never seen before because nobody else is using it, and a language that nobody writes in anymore, so you wouldn't have thought to learn it. So even if you could physically enter the premises and try and hack the system to bring it down, you wouldn't know how, because it just was too old and obscure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason they don't update these things, because if you run it on Windows 11, there's a million holes to get in, and everybody knows them. All the hackers know them, so that's one of the reasons they don't update them.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, for example, we're currently, and I don't know if you're familiar with this in the news. Maybe it's in the news because I follow aviation, but the FAA is supposedly taking a advice from a commission, and granted, these are people that used to be FAA, used to be and TSC. They used to be and among commercial pilots.
Governmental branches too for safety and security, right?
Well, they're retirees, right? And there's also commercial pilots in there, because if you don't follow the news, basically what happened is there has been a lot of near misses on airports, and there was a time, was it last year already, or was it this year, where aviation stopped for a day because the computer systems crashed. So they couldn't get any flights out. So this is basically what's going on, and it makes you wonder. Like, granted, we need to do something, right? Because these systems, obviously, they're causing issues with the growth that we have in aviation since the systems got created. But it makes you wonder, based on what you just said, Ray. Obviously, we need to do something to fix those issues, but how much should we fix? Then we don't, introduce other issues.
Well, it depends on the system. I mean, if you've got an old computer system running a decades-old power plant, the power plant isn't going to keep getting bigger and outgrow the computer system. But something like computer systems running an airport terminal, more flights come in, they add runways and things so you can have more flights arriving at once. But the period of time that the flights are allowed to come in extends into the night or something, because if there's people living nearby, they'll often say, oh, you can only have flights from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night or something like that. But, if they extend that, there's more going on. And, if there's more planes in the air at once, the system's got to be able to track them all. And there's only a certain amount that they can track at a time. So once you get past the system's ability to cope with the traffic, then you need a better system. You don't have a choice. You can't keep running on what you've got. So yeah, that's sort of a different kettle of fish in that they have to update. They can't not, basically.
Yeah. So I was only mentioning this because that makes sense as to what we see in this film. This is the kind of technology you see in those labs. And I really applaud because there had been so many films where they show you computer systems. And I don't know if I'm stepping over what you were going to say, Ray, but
a little. Sorry.
I'm trying not to, but it's not the same, right? They try to elaborate and they try to make it good for film, right?
Yeah.
We're making all those grandiose, displays when the actual systems, even today, are nowhere near that. And one example that I can say would be the movie Hackers. I really loved that movie. I really enjoyed it. But I remember looking at, and I always been into computers, by the way, if you don't already know this, but I remember seeing this film and looking at the computer screens and what they were doing on the computer screen. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's
well, the reality of
Robert was like, bitch, I can get that on my Commodore.
that's not how it works.
The reality of anything to do with hacking is that they can't show you how a real hacker functions because they don't want people to learn how to do it from watching their movie, and it would be basically illegal. So what they show you on the screen is some bullshit that they made up.
But if it was that, Ray, I would be okay with. But at least show me what a computer actually does, and not what you feel in a movie the computer should be doing.
Well, movies from the 80s have a lot of trouble when they're projecting into the future because, obviously our future has flat screens and their future didn't. If it's a sort of a retrograde future, kind of like I was thinking more along the lines of Blade Runner,
Yeah.
where you have low tech and high tech, and you're showing the low tech, then they'd probably still reuse CRTs, which is fine. But the high tech has to look much more high tech to pass muster these days. So yeah, I mean, the movie we did just recently, Demolition Man, their computer systems look really crappy. It really, they didn't, and that could have been a choice of the director, or it could have been a limitation of the budget, that they just didn't have the budget to make that look good, so they just went with what they could do. But obviously this movie, they had enough budget to make the computer screens at least look like they were doing something reasonably techy. And of course it was set in the time it was filmed in, which was 87, so they didn't have to try and make it look futuristic. So I thought the computers in this one basically showed quite well what theoretically they should be doing.
Yeah. I especially like that choice that you get to see, like, when they're about to enlarge the pod, and on the computer screen you see a choice. You see one and two. I can't remember which one was it. Eat me, drink me, which is a reference to Alice in Wonderland. But just looking at that CRT, it's like, wow, that's pretty much it. So you press the one for a choice of one, and you press the two for a choice of two. And depending on how that program was written, you might not need to press the enter key after you press your choice. So it's not like a graphic where you press this button and you roll this over here. No, it's just a simple 1 and 2, and it's so realistic. And I'm loving it.
See, I watched this movie, and then I watched The Creator, and The Creator's set in 2065 for most of it. It was really interesting. He went into the security guard station, and he went to the screen of the, like, the multi-screen security screens where you have a whole bunch of camera images shown, and he went to the screen and did that and zoomed it. And it's like, whoa, okay, yep, this is the future. Even the security screens are touch panels. So, it was just a nice little nod at the future, and even security cameras, you can zoom them because obviously they're higher quality than what security cameras are these days. But yeah, I was quite impressed with that one, and it just showed the sort of juxtaposition of displays and what they can do and what they're expected to be able to do in the future.
Yeah. So was that going to be your, or do you have a different, like, impacting from this film? And I know you've probably seen this twice. Out of the times that you've seen it, I guess I should ask the question: what really impressed you? A combination of all the times that you watched it.
Well, I'll pick something different just because.
He doesn't like plagiarize work.
Yeah, I'm not going to plagiarize it. It's okay. So the pod that he was in.
Yes.
It was impressively designed by whoever designed it to make it feel real. It had that whole, this is a prototype feel to it, where everything was sort of taped down with duct tape and nothing. It wasn't all sort of super sci-fi with all, everything covered in panels and stuff. No,
it felt to me like a one-person submarine, right?
Exactly. But even like a production model of a one-person submarine would have all the cables hidden and it'd be trunking and stuff. Oh no, not this shit. This shit's brand new. It's the cables everywhere, but it was raw, but the controls made sense within the story. Like when he was using the electromagnetic pulse to get attention. He had a system where he had to set it up and wait for it to charge, and then he hit the button and it discharged, and that made sense because you'd want to use a capacitor to charge it up and then release it all at once to get the pulse. The fact that it made the TV blow up and spit the VHS tape through the window seemed a little bit comedic, but the pod itself kind of felt real. I mean, I couldn't fault it. Like it had a computer voice, sure, that's fine. But you know, when he was attacked by the other like the Sharky Boy submersible miniaturized bad guy thing, he cut the cables on one of the engines and it ceased to function, and the computer voice said so. You know, it all made sense. It all fit together in that sort of milieu of cutting edge tech that hasn't been.
And you know what's the fun thing about it? It's not AI. It's just a computer voice over. Yeah. So it's not like it's independently talking to you and giving you like little bits of personality. It just talks and says what's happening. That's it.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel more like a tool than something else.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I thought when one of your actors is stuck inside a pod for most of the movie, it seemed to work really well, and I thought there was enough variety with that pod that you weren't bored whenever Tuck had to do something, because there was all sorts of different things on there. The camera for the eyeball, the contraption attaching to the eardrum so that he could talk to the person he was inside of. I don't know how the rabbit would have dealt with that particularly well, but it seemed to work okay for the human. And, like different arms and things, so he could, and the fact that he could get his little hip flask and put it into a little chute and have the arm hold it out to catch some of the Southern Comfort that Jack was drinking. I thought that was quite cute. But I mean, it all made sense in a way. None of it was wave hands bullshit beyond the technology to shrink the ship, which, is something that's still nothing that we know how to do. But I mean, as far as the techno magic is concerned, that was the only point of techno magic that I thought or hand waving that they did. And the rest of it seemed to hold together quite well. So I'm always a big fan of internal logic within a story, and this one held up pretty damn good.
Hey, Gio, I don't know if you know, but Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid dated after this film and then married.
Ha!
Oh, wow.
I figure you might want to know that.
Interesting. I think that doesn't happen always, but it has happened many times that an actor and an actress kind of develop emotional feelings for each other throughout their work together on a movie or something. It's not the first time that this happens.
Yeah,
it happens often.
Yeah.
Meg Ryan looked pretty thirsty in a few scenes in this movie.
Well, yeah, man, imagine, bro. Dennis Quaid, bro. Dude is fucking handsome.
Yeah,
true.
In this film, it was his peak.
To me, Dennis Quaid is one of the most handsome dudes in the film in movies, of all times. I think that he's a very handsome guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I want to talk about is the effects on the film. And I'm just gonna mention one thing, just to prove a point, and then we can move on from that. But all of the cells that we see outside the pod, in this film.
Oh, I thought you meant in this show.
And all of the cells that were outside the pod on this movie were created out of yellow. So that's like incredibly mind-boggling to me that they look so good. And the special effects, obviously it's the 80s. You're not going to have,
you have to be creative.
you have like ILM, you have all those companies, obviously, right? This movie, for some reason, didn't choose to be as special effect heavy, but the special effects they did use, they were practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
Were
It's a workaround. It's creative. They thought out. They did think out of the box. It's very creative.
very on point. And that opens up a debate, right? Because you have some people in the camp of, the special effects, they need to be like computerized, and which it could be a tricky question, because if you don't do it right, it goes into the uncanny valley, and that's what the other camp goes in to fight for and say, no, I'd rather have my special effects without all that CGI. And they're always saying that the best CGI is the one you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So unseen GI.
Exactly. If you can't see something that is CGI and you can't tell it's CGI,
How can you do that when you're in outer space or miniaturized inside a person's body? That's
so
difficult not to see.
yeah. Yeah. So what do you guys think about that? And I don't know if you noticed this. It's just one of the things that I can appreciate. There has been some special effects done in the 80s from some movies where it wasn't done as well, maybe because they didn't have the budget. I can never tell, but it goes into the campy area. Well, some they because remember, you have this is 87. You have
Yeah.
companies like ILM in there, so they could have gone and have this tremendous like CGI created for CGI of the time, obviously.
It was too early to do any sort of a good job, and it would have blown the budget out, I reckon. George Lucas with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was bagged by a lot of industry know-it-alls for using CGI, being so CGI heavy. And that was just when the CGI was starting to get good, around the time of Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
So 87, I don't think they would have been able to produce anything believable or acceptable with CGI. I think it would have had to have been practical effects to bring in the viewers, to make them feel like suspend disbelief and think what they're seeing is close to fact. I don't think CGI in 87 or 86 could have cut it at all.
Okay. So you think and it makes sense that this would be just cost prohibited if they wanted to.
Well, cost and technological advancement prohibited. Like I said, CGI didn't start getting good until around 2000. And when I say good, I mean acceptable, not what we have today. So I think you're pushing shit uphill thinking that they could have done it with CGI.
I mean, just for you to look at the evolution of what Ray is telling you. Watch Lord of the Ring, The Fellowship, and then watch the last Hobbit, the last of the Hobbit movies. I think the Smeagol shows up in one of them, in the second one, when he takes the ring. But you can see the difference and the whole evolution of when CGI started getting good, so it was actually visually acceptable to could be a reality,
And then go read a Battle Angel to see what it looks like peak.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And then realize that she's a full CGI character for the entire movie, and even her hair is CGI, which I didn't realize because I couldn't tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I was mentioning that is because if you take, for example, one of the IPs that we cover in the show, The Last Starfighter, obviously that is done in 1984. If you compare these two films, although it's only a couple of years difference, when it comes to the effects, is night and day. It's completely night and day. I
Don't
do.
let the fact that many characters are extraterrestrial beings that are using great makeup and to change their appearance to special effects neither, because that we don't have that here. So that abundant factor of like the extraterrestrial beings and things that gives you more of a sense of outer factors coming into the movie that are not normal to be seen in normal scene. You
Well,
know,
let me say one thing: computer screens.
well, because
And
the Last Starfighter, if I'm not mistaken, is not very full on CGI, is it?
well, it is. It was full in
No,
CGI at the
yeah,
time. At the time, it was done with computer. I forgot. We actually mentioned that on the show. It was
vector graphics.
exactly.
Okay.
Which I really appreciate. And don't get me wrong, it's still one of my all-time iconic
Battle
sci-fi.
Zone.
Um, but if you compare the special effects on these two films, you can see it's night and day.
Well, from what I remember, Last Starfighter was the first ever full CGI space scene movie. Like
Yes.
nobody had done full CGI in space, like for a space scene before.
I'm
Or,
sorry, Dave. That's not true.
really?
I'm sorry, Dave. That's not true.
What? What? Oh, really? What are you saying?
Come on. What's your counterpoint?
Space Odyssey was before that, long before that, and they had great
No. Full CGI
Full
space scene.
yeah. Computer
I mean,
graphic. Full
are they
computer.
full complete? Oh, okay.
Now, what I'm saying is before that, people use
Whatever, Dave.
whatever, Dave.
Whatever, Dave.
I think I pissed off Hal. Except Geo would be playing Hal $5.50, not 9,000.
Don't get mad when I don't give you the next dosage for your sickness.
No,
Dave.
Geo would be about 50 cents.
Yeah, 50 cent. Hal
Careful, Ray.
0.5.
When your diabetes alarm goes off, if it doesn't work, don't piss off technology, man. Don't piss off technology.
Right.
Your life depends on it.
Well, at least it's not tied to AI, I think. That
You couldn't hack a vending machine, let alone
Oh my god.
an isolated system.
Nice.
God.
Nice.
But yeah, I think yes, but no. I mean, the last Starfighter was sort of directed out in space, where this movie occurs on Earth, but
Inner
it has
space.
scenes of inside a person. So a lot more is known about what's inside a person than what's in space. And even though the pod was a mock-up, it was based off current technology, so dials and gauges and you know the hatch looked like it came off a submersible, and you know they had things to reference. Whereas in the last Starfighter, it was all futuristic imagination. So, I mean, they would spend a lot of time putting that together. I mean, you look at Star Wars and how they did all that. And well, I suppose you can't look at that anymore because they got rid of it. They replaced it with CGI. But I mean, just looking at the evolution of the Star Wars trilogy, the original trilogy, and how it was modified from the original theatrical release through to what you can, you know, access from Disney at the moment, is night and day as far as the practical effects that were converted to CGI. And while the CGI can look prettier, it doesn't have the same physical impact that practical effects does, and that's why a lot of horror movies prefer to use practical effects rather than CGI, because it just doesn't have the same physical factor. It doesn't feel as visceral as practical effects do. Even a case in point, The Creator. There was a scene where they were what looked like a textile mill, but they were actually making simulant bodies for AI. And it looked like the AI had been installed before they were finished, because there was a guy lying on a conveyor belt and he was having his body stitched together by a machine. And it it seemed reasonably low tech. It was sort of like a sweatshop in Asia somewhere.
Mhm.
But he was like moving around a little bit and looking around and sort of, obviously active, but not fully functional. And then they cut away from that to the characters talking, and then they cut away to a wider shot, and there was a body without a head. And it immediately looked to me, from my trained eye, like one of the mannequins at my new job, which was obviously not real. Like the skin looked plastic, rubbery, and it didn't look like it did from the shot before. The two shots were clearly, one was an inanimate object, and the other one was somebody who was made up to look like a simulant being put together. And you could tell the difference. You can visually tell the difference right there. They didn't spend enough time on it to make it look matching, which is a shame. But even movies from, that were made last year or the year before, they still have these problems. And it's a tricky thing to make everything believable.
Is the factor of micro expressions and other factors that are beyond the regular sight, that they're very minuscule, but together all form those natural movements in a human body. Even I'm fascinated by human robotics. You got X Robot, which is a company that is moving forward very fast in China with humanoid look like robots, and say they look real. And when you look at it, like, doesn't look real. It looks like a plastic bag, the skin on it. It looks great, and it's fascinating how advanced it is. But sometimes the selling point of something is trying to delude you from the reality too.
Sales talk.
Yeah.
See, the whole uncanny valley thing and computer generated faces has been a real problem. And basically how they got around it in Alita Battle Angel was that they upped the bar from motion capture, which is the movement of the body, to what they call performance capture, which is the movement of the body plus the movement of the face. So they had two high definition cameras pointed at the actors' faces at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And they would capture the facial movements, all the little ticks and the movements and the tiny smiles.
Some points, yeah.
And there was dots marked all over the face. So if you ever go and Google Rosa Salazar filming Alita Battle Angel, you'll find photos of this, and looks nothing like the finished product. Like it looks like some sort of ridiculous joke. But then what Weta can do with that information is create a flawless digital character, and they did.
That's how Smeagol started too, from the Rings, for example.
Well, the interesting thing is that in the early 2000s, when Smeagol was first seen, the number of pixels in his entire body equaled the number of pixels in one eye of Alita.
Holy shit!
That's how far the technology has advanced in 15, 16 years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean it's rocketed away, and it's quite impressive what they can do now. Another example is Avatar: The Way of Water, which is an even more recent movie, but it's an advancement of a couple of years of the technology. And I have to admit that I haven't seen that movie yet. I'm going to get killed by the Alita Army for saying that.
I haven't. What a way, no. I tried. I'm sorry, it didn't capture me. Love the first one.
I've ordered the 3D Blu-ray, so I'm waiting for that to show up. And I'm going to watch it in 3D, which would be awesome. Oh, no. But like The Martian last week, I watched that in 3D. So
nice.
I like my 3D. But basically the technology and making things believable has come a hell of a long way. If they redid InnerSpace now, I reckon they could do almost full CGI and make it believable if it was wetter. They've got the way to do it, but it would cost probably 10, 12 times the budget of this movie.
Oh yeah.
And of course you wouldn't have that awesome 80s action factor. We'd have to be all PC and stuff. So the whole thing would be rewritten. You wouldn't have awesome lines from Robert Picardo like, women love me, but you know that. Can we talk about the Star Trek connection?
Yes,
in this movie, Robert Picardo, who plays the EMH in Voyager and makes a few later appearances as an EMH in other shows, Star Trek shows. But he plays in this movie, and he has hair, and he's younger, and you actually see the amazing range of acting chops that this guy has. Obviously, all those who are Star Trek fans, Robert, who've watched Voyager through, would know the sort of the pretty, intense acting of the EMH in Voyager. And, sci-fi lovers would, unless they've, seen this movie and really picked up on him, they would know him for that, and they would think about his acting ability as in sort of like a vaguely British, a little stuck up, pretentious sort of style of acting. But no, this guy's got a wide range of acting. In this movie, he plays a wannabe cowboy who thinks he's a ladies' man, and basically gets manhandled and thrown in the bathtub. But then through technology which Tuck has on the little ship, he modifies Jack's face to look like the cowboy. And then Robert Picardo takes over playing Jack and has to reproduce all the mannerisms and speech patterns and voice pattern of Martin Short, who's playing Jack. And then he has to go back to playing the cowboy later on. I mean, they never filmed these scenes in sequence, so maybe he did one and then he did the other. But basically, he's showing his wide range of acting ability throughout this movie, and then you see him as the EMH in Star Trek, and it's completely different again. So I've got so much respect for Robert Picardo's acting ability. I actually now want to go and find him in other things where he's doing something completely different again, because the guy's a really good actor.
You know what movie does this, even though it's not sci-fi? Face Off.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that movie tripped the fuck out of me, man. Yeah, I mean, the operation is the only sci-fi part of it. There's nothing more sci-fi. But, I mean, that movie tripped the hell out of me, because you look at them at the beginning of the movie, they show their personality, and then the whole movie, they're switched up.
Yeah. And then at the end, they go back.
Yeah, and they did a great job. Like, you can see the switch of personalities in between them. But that's another movie that does play that kind of thing like that, and it trips you out, man. Seeing a person inside of another person.
And that's how you know they're good actors, if they can switch characters and be believable in the same show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have, I seen Voyager, and that he's such a great actor. I got mad respects for him, and this movie shows, his range big time.
I mean, even if you're not particularly keen on the topic of this movie, but you're a Star Trek fan and you like Robert Picardo's EMH, just watch this to see the difference. It's well worth it.
Yes. Okay, so I think we're at the part of the show where we ask our final question.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the question that we usually ask is, what is your last impression of the film? And
Ray's going to be last here because he's going to give us the encyclopedia.
Am I?
It's one of those movies, Ray, that is in your domain completely. Sells mucus and stuff. Well, I had to say that this movie is one of those milestones of the 80s. I think that there's a lot of useful factors into the movie. I mean, to me as a kid, it grew the interest in biology as a class, and it had an effect on me later on how good I became on chemistry too. Um, but I think that has a lot of educational factors into it, and that you're watching the movie, you might not even realize that you're learning things. And I think that that's very interesting and fun way to show people. I think that in schools, when you have a teacher that sets apart from the others, is because they know how to make the class interesting and engaging with the students. Which we all have to admit that for a long time ago, it's not like all educational systems go like that. So that's why when a teacher is good at what they do and they know how to do it to make the class interesting and engaging for the students, they stand out. You know, and I think that this movie kind of adds up to things should be this interesting for you to learn. There's so many things that I've watched, not only this movie, but there are other things that are about a topic of education. And I learned more because I watched a movie that engaged me more into that topic. And then it actually lit that fire inside for me to go and check and read more about it, Because the important thing when you want to learn something about it is that you have an innate interest into it. As long as you don't have that, you ain't going to learn anything. But once you discover that and you go and excel at it, it's fire on. And this movie helped me out with that. And beside all of the things, like I think this movie is a movie that anybody that likes sci-fi or good comedy should enjoy at least once. And it's a family. It's a movie that is good for the whole family. Mostly.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to go next, Ray?
Yeah,
Or
go for it. I don't mind.
okay. So to me, this film is just another one in my list of iconic, nostalgic sci-fi from the 80s. Um, it's not as heavy in the science as many of the other films that we have covered here.
Hmm.
But we have covered films like this where it's a lot of fun to watch. The topic that they picked, um, it's great. It's a great way to introduce new minds to the concept of biology, and the way that they represent the technology and all that combined make this just not only a great fun watch, nostalgic for all of those of you who actually watched this in closer to the 80s, um, but it's just such a great film. If I cannot doubt you haven't seen it by now, but if you haven't, I recommend you watch it and then come back to us. Maybe you want to reach out to us in Discord and let's talk about your experience with it. If you have not watched it before, or if you watched it during the 80s and rewatched it now, um, we're very curious to know what your thoughts are and see where your thoughts align to any of the thoughts that us, each of the hosts here, um, are commenting on. But yes, the film, it's a great sci-fi film. It's soft on the science, um, but it's just a great watch. And one of the things that I like the most, as we are explained earlier, is the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if they are people that join into the biology field in any um, um, and any potential within that field because of this film, because it was it impresses. And of course, I didn't watch it when I was that young. I was a little, older when I watched it, but even at that age, it just impressed me
And it
on
was more accurate than Grey's Anatomy. You can have that for a fact.
and that is my thought. So
the the satisfaction value of a movie has a whole lot of different sort of metrics. You know those sort of power charts where they have the concentric rings, and you have sort of bits pointing out towards strength and intelligence, and it sort of shows you a sort of a snapshot of how that character ranks up against different ones and what their strengths and weaknesses are. This movie has far more strengths than it does weaknesses. Now, this is a quote from Dennis Quaid. He says, "It's a dumb, stupid comedy, which is exactly what people need in the summertime. It's very idiotic, and I love it. We encounter every dumb, stupid cliche in the book. Leave your brain at home, and you'll have a good time."
Yes.
Now, that's coming from somebody who's not a scientist, right? So he just completely glossed over all the science and looked at the comedy. So it's got that angle to it. But as you've probably become aware from our discussion here, there's lots of science to it, and it's quite interesting. And it does, better than Grey's Anatomy. That should probably be a hashtag. But we've spoken on the biology of it, and besides the fast travel that he was using to get through the body at certain times.
Quantum.
Quantum? No, he probably goes like, "Go Taco Bell, diarrhea."
There are certain ways you can get out of a body that they weren't covering in this movie.
Allergies.
Yeah, you go for the hairspray. I mean, they set that up at the start, so it was completely
It goes
internally
faster by a
logical.
sneeze than diarrhea for sure, right?
But I mean, the writing in this movie was quite tight. They set up the hairspray allergy at the beginning. They made it so things were going on in the little pod at the same time they were going on outside the pod to link the two together. It was tightly written. It's quite nostalgic. It's very 80s, but that's not a downside,
No,
especially
it's
if
not.
you live through the 80s. It holds to its internal logic. There's only one little bit of hand waving, and that's the miniaturization and resizing technology. But that's fine. I mean, that's sci-fi for you. You've got to have some sort of reason why it's different. I don't feel like it's something you need to leave your brain at the door for, like Dennis Quaid said, because the science stacks up. He goes into the ear and puts a device in there so that the host can hear him. That makes sense. He puts a little camera in the back of the eyeball so he can see what the person's looking at. And when the person's got their hands over their face, he can't see, and he asks them to move them or move his head back because he can't focus. I mean, it all works. It's got an internal logic to it that as a scientist and a writer who hates gaps in internal logic, I didn't have a problem with it. So, I mean, this movie holds together really well. The acting is good. The stars that are in it are big bill stars for 87. You got beautiful women and handsome men and good comedians, and crazy things happen, but it makes sense. The bad guy is a bit cliche, which falls maybe a little too far to the comedy side. But I mean, it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if you want a fun movie that also has some good science chops and sci-fi chops, I think this one fits the bill quite nicely. And you can watch it with your family. There's nothing disgusting in it, so it should be fine for anybody above the age of 12. So and I mean, if your kid's bright like mine is, they can probably deal with it already. Mine's 10. So I don't think he'd have a problem with it. Maybe focusing on it for that long would be a little hard for him because he's YouTube generation. So if it's longer than 20 minutes, it's a bit hard. But I mean, it's a good movie. I like it. I'd forgotten quite how much I like it. And yeah, it was good to watch it again and remind myself. I found myself going, oh yeah, I think this is what happens next. Oh yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, good twist. So yeah, I mean, it's got a good story. They did enough with the science. The comedy hits pretty much all the time. Martin Short's a great off lead. And you do feel kind of sorry for him that he didn't get the girl, but she was already pregnant with the other guy's kid, so you got to expect that. Yeah, I mean, it's a good movie, and I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Well, he had the chance to end up with a girl, but he made an executive decision that wouldn't be the best one.
She was the workplace bicycle, man. You don't settle down with one of them. It's not a good idea.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess we can move on to the next segment on this show.
The science in sci-fi.
Okay, so
You want to do your bit first?
well, I want to go. Let's go with yours. I'm basically what I wrote is just the scientific experimentation process. Only because we're watching one of the phases of the scientific experimentation. So you have typically 5 steps, and Ray, do correct me if I miss one of those. But you have the first step, which is formulating your hypothesis. This is when you kind of like try to make sense of what you think is going to happen, and you try to contextualize it, and maybe write a couple of sentences or a book on what you think it is, and it, so you can prepare for the other steps. The other step is designing the experiment. So now in this step, you kind of like going through your hypothesis statement, and you try to design what experiments you need to do to prove what you actually have written in the hypothesis, and you need to figure out what would be the best way to collect the data in a way that you could analyze it to be able to tell what your hypothesis, if it's sound or if it is not, and you need to make some adjustments. So then the third step is collecting the data. This is observations and measurements made during the experimental phase. I believe this film was in this stage of the experimentation process, where maybe farther out, obviously, because they had the device and they're still doing experimentation. Obviously, this went wrong because they were supposed to go on a rabbit, and they ended up in a human being. So it begs the question of, did they botch the whole process, or did they got data that they otherwise would not get, and maybe this accident turned out to be more valuable than what it actually is? That's still debatable. Then the next step will be the analyzing the data. This is not, I think this is not the part where they're in. This is when they finalize all the experiments, they gather all the information, they gather all the data, and now they got to analyze it, mostly with computers and other parts within the researchers who are actually, organizing all that data. And then the final part of the experimentation process is actually drawing a conclusion. So now you have the data, you have analyzed it, you have made sense of your observations, and you compare it to your hypothesis. And this is when you can draw conclusions to see if your experimentation, your scientific hypothesis was correct, was not correct, or what I believe happens to most of these, which is the gray area where, it's correct, but, or it's not correct, but, where now you have to have, you have to send it over to the body of knowledge and see if you get more information on it. One thing that I skipped over is that during the collecting the data phase, the observation, the part that you're doing all the experiments to collect the data, the the scientific process will stop if during that phase you can't replicate the experiment. So if you do it once and you do it a second time, so that we kind of talked about this in previous shows. If you can't replicate the results, basically it would be where this kind of dies. Because then if you can't replicate the results, you can't really move into the analyzing the data part of it. Because you need to be able to compare and do all your analysis of the data.
N equals 1 is not valid.
Mm.
N being your data number. If you only have one data point, you can't validate anything.
Exactly. So
there is a little bit that you skipped over. If you were working on a brand new field in complete isolation, this is correct. But if you're working in a field that already has a body of knowledge, you need to read up on that body of knowledge and see what's been done before to know where to go next. Hypotheses don't just appear out of nowhere. And if somebody's already done that experiment, doing it again is just repeating what's already known. So there's not a whole great deal of reason to do that. You want to be experimenting in an area that hasn't been covered yet to increase the volume of knowledge, just not replicate it. So when you're formulating your hypothesis, you would read the existing body of knowledge and find out where things are up to, and then come up with a hypothesis to test a phenomenon that hasn't already been established as being correct or incorrect. Of course, you don't tend to publish all your incorrect ones, so you might pick something somebody's already done and failed with. So there can be some overlap there. But also, after the drawing conclusion stage, you generally need to publish so that you're sharing that knowledge with the world. But before you can get published, you've got to go through a process. Now, my brain doesn't want to tell me what the process is called, but it's really important. I can't remember what the term is, but basically other people in your field need to read it and see if they can pick holes in it or not.
Peer reviews.
That's it. Thank you. I don't know why my brain wouldn't talk about it. Yes, you got to go through the peer review process. So your peers are people who are working in the same area generally. Sometimes they'll get somebody in from a completely different area, so they can get a different take on it because they're not biased. But basically, other reputable scientists need to read through your material and comment on it and say, this isn't really clear, you should do a bit more experimentation in this area, or that's complete bullshit, and this is the paper that says so, and just basically decide whether or not your results are robust enough to be worth publishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, in most things, professionally speaking, in any scientific and professional field, when you're going to bring up data that you want to use as backup for whatever hypothesis you have, it's always advisable to use peer review sources, because otherwise it could come from anywhere and not necessarily has to be truth. Most of the time it's not.
But then that is for general open source publishing scientific experimentation. There's a lot of scientific experimentation these days which is known as NDA, or private science. Mm-hmm. And that is paid for rather than by government grants. The money comes from a company, and the company wants to keep the research under wraps so that they can benefit from the results, because they want to make money off it. They put the money in, they want to get more money out. They want the results of the technology. So a technology like this, like miniaturization technology, would be something that would have been funded by somebody who wants to keep it hush-hush. So you wouldn't be publicly accessible, at least until somebody had made their money back on it and then some. So there is a lot of science going on out there that isn't published, isn't announced to the world. It's kept in the quiet, and depending on whether or not people can make money out of it, they may or may not release it. Mm-hmm. So it's not a case of all science experiments that are ever done are out there in the public domain. They are not. And this would be an example of it.
I was going to ask,
and that's why you have industrial espionage, because other people want to steal it because they can't get access to it through the public domain, so that they can get the jump on it and make the money. And that's why you have industrial espionage in scientific circles.
I was going to ask because I had this, I have a specific, have a different view on this, only because it makes sense to me. And I have had conversations about this as well. On the part of private research, obviously, only big corporations can possibly have the money to budget for something like this, because you need to be able to pay for the research, not only just a researcher or researchers or research department. Most companies have what they call the R&D, which is the research and
Research and development.
development department, which is an entire crew. Now, my thought on this is science can't technically be all fenced in. So at some point, either the company has to spend more money and bring a specialized scientist in a specific field, because maybe they have something in within that, that they need that peer system, right? And this is it in my brain. I'm trying to explain it as fast as I can. So I feel that in some cases they might not necessarily leaked. That's not the best word, but maybe segmentate the, like, separate the research and maybe publish certain area of the research that helps then together with the research as a whole, or maybe separate the research in a way that, this goes to this body of knowledge, this goes to this other body of knowledge, and that way they can kind of have that peer system within their own research, to where they can actually bring it back into the R&D department, and no one really knows what the company is doing because they segregated the research
Mhm.
in separate, distinct, um what's the word that I'm looking for,
Silos.
silos or sections, but
So
once
nobody can put it together, really.
you can't really put
Makes
it
sense.
together because it's all makes sense, it's all its own thing, but once you bring it back, you can have the benefit of the peer review. Is that something that you've seen? Is that something that is possible, or does it make just sense in my head, or it's just me making things up that you know of?
Possibly. I haven't seen it in action because I'm not in private industry R&D.
He wouldn't be able to tell you, anyways.
Oh yeah,
And then, yeah, I'd be under NDA. So
Dun,
but
yeah.
I mean, look,
dun.
it's conspiracy theory number one from Geo today. It's only one today. Anyway, so yeah, but that sort of stuff would happen. I mean, the whole point of the scientific community sharing information and data and theories and stuff is so that you don't go down the wrong path, so that you don't miss something and screw it up completely. And a lot of these things, somebody discovers something new and it changes what we know, and then stuff that's done before is no longer considered canon. It's not the understanded knowledge of the time. It's become ancient history. It's possible that in something that's really highly complex, you could partition it and send bits off to different areas and get feedback from it. It's not impossible that if you put enough of the bits out, somebody couldn't put the puzzle back together and work out the missing pieces. So they'd have to be really careful about that. But basically, at the theoretical stage, getting the theories checked by peer review would be sensible before you go into the physical actual creating the technology that can do it. That would be the bit you want to keep secret. I mean, the fact that somebody came up with a theory of miniaturization would be fine, but you wouldn't want to share the technological knowledge of how to actually do it, because that's the bit you can make money from. The patentable part.
The reason why I'm saying this, and this is the way that I think, is I find it hard to believe because let me explain the whole thing here, and trying to formulate my thoughts. But scientific research needs that peer review.
Yes.
Otherwise, I don't want to say it's not science, because that's not correct, but you would not get the benefits from research, the necessary benefits from research that you would get if you have the peer review. So in my mind, I'm thinking that they have to do something for like the private research.
There,
And
there has to be a respectable entity backing up the accuracy of this. Is what you mean to say, right?
kind of, it just needs to be. I mean,
Backed
maybe
up by something.
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't, use
Mhm.
the.
Well, there's gaps, certainly asking other experts would help fill in those gaps. But the proof is in the pudding. If you can create something that does the thing you want it to do, like miniaturize a submersible so you can put it inside another organism, then the proof is in the pudding. It worked.
Mhm.
Right. So what you see in this movie is in the commercialization stage. The theories have been come up with. They've probably been shared with the scientific community because there was another company there who was working off the same theories, trying to make it happen, but they hadn't got the technology right yet. And that's why they were stealing the chips. It was industrial espionage to catch up.
Mhm.
So obviously there'd been either some sort of leak, or they knew who had published the original theories, and were obviously working towards that in their somewhat insecure research facility. So they might have had a mole in there. They might have had or just presumed that that's what was happening. The fact that they picked that moment was fortuitous for them and severely detrimental for the experiment, which made it a much more interesting story. If they picked another time, it wouldn't have been nearly as interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, science is always hampered by politics. It's always hampered by greed. A lot of scientific advancement happens during wartime because greed and violence and horrible stuff. People want new and fantastic weapons to do more damage to the enemy, and therefore science gets a lot of funding and a lot of push to succeed in things. In fact, the two most advancing human technological times in the previous century was World War I and World War II. If it wasn't for what was discovered in World War II, we wouldn't have space program. We wouldn't have atomic reactors. We wouldn't have a lot of things to do with medicine that the Nazis, through horrible experiments on living people, discovered that, I mean, it was a terrible thing that they did, but the information saved thousands of lives since, or hundreds of thousands of lives probably. So, I mean, yes, it was bad. Column B has some blood in it. Column A has some success and some good for humanity in it. So it sort of leveled it out a little bit. Not that I'm recommending to, just go bonkers with human experiments, but at least there was something positive that came out of it. You couldn't go back in time and stop it, but at least we got blood typing and various other things out of it. So I mean, science goes ahead and leaps and bounds during times of crisis because we want a solution to the problem. Getting back to this, I mean, you've got two companies who are working on the same thing, obviously. So, but they're doing it behind closed doors. It doesn't look like, at least in the commercialization stage, that they're sharing the information, which is why one company goes after the other. And can I go into my little spiel for this section?
I'm pretty
Cool.
much.
So, cool. So, what I wanted to draw your attention to was the difference between the two labs. So the lab that we see originally kind of looks like NASA in the 60s with, colored alfoil and cables running everywhere. And, their budget isn't huge, but they're spending it in the right way. They're getting their technology to work. Compare that to the bad guys. They have this beautiful, like, ergonomically designed, sexy sci-fi laboratory.
Aesthetics.
But their technology... But exactly, but their technology is shit. So they've gone for the sci-fi aesthetic, whereas the other guys are like, whatever works, just alfoil. We don't care. Alfoil and like flashing light, like a flashing globe to tell you if the thing's running. It's not like anything fancy, but it works. So I feel that the good guys, who got the technology working, were spending the money in the right way. But the bad guys were trying to look like scientists, not act like scientists. So that's why they were behind the 8 ball and not getting to where they needed to get to, be front runners in the technology. So that's another thing to consider. The sort of the impetus and the drive and what the sort of political standpoint of the organization is. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of delivery. When I saw those two things, I went, I got something to talk about. The other thing about this is that it's the pink elephant in the room is the technology itself. How would miniaturization technology work? We don't have any. As far as I know, it could be hidden in some R&D facility somewhere. CERN might have cracked it. Who knows? But whoever cracked it would know, but we don't. It hasn't been released to the public. But how could something like that work? There's two ideas that I came up with, both of which have serious problems that you'd have to work around. The first one is there's a lot of space between atoms. And although it may look like your skin is fully sealed and there's no gaps, all the atoms in a molecule have space between them where the van der Waals forces or whatever bonds that the atoms are using to hold together to create that molecule are in effect. So the atoms aren't squished up next to each other. If you were thrown into a black hole, that would change immeasurably and you'd be squashed down to the size of a pinhead. But in normal life, these forces push the atoms apart but hold them in relative positions near each other. So there is space between the atoms. Now, if you could find a way to reduce that space, which would probably require a large amount of energy, then you could shrink something down and keep it with the same number of atoms and keep the functionality the same. But the bonds between the atoms would not take up as much room. But that requires a huge amount of energy, and it will probably require that energy to keep being provided so that the atoms don't spring back to their natural positioning. So you'd require that effect to be running continuously to keep the person as well. And of course, if it broke, well, you get a bit of a mess as whatever you were compressing suddenly springed back into its normal size and exploded whatever it was inside of, which would create a huge
and hopefully that it will get to the normal size, not to get larger by accident.
Well, it might bounce out and then shrink back to where it's supposed to be. But that's one theory that I had. The other theory was the atom removal theory. Now, obviously, a liver has a certain number of liver cells in it to function. I'm just using liver as an example. But, of course, a fetus has a tiny little liver in it, which is created with liver cells, but far less of them. Now, obviously, a fetus is quite a bit smaller than a grown adult, but it's not microscopic. So you can only take away a certain number of cells before the thing stops being the organ that it needs to be. It kind of looked like, from what they showed us, when the thing was like the pod was on a centrifuge, it was spinning around, and suddenly it went and there was material that went off into things that sucked it up, and it kind of looked like it was removing atoms material from the device in a ratio to make it smaller, but still functioned the same way. How possible that is, I couldn't say, but it's, as I said, you know, a liver is only a liver because it has a certain amount of structures and does things in a certain way. And once you take away enough cells, it stops being a liver and starts being a little pile of liver cells. So that would be the same problem with shrinking a person down. And then when you've got to enlarge them, you need to put all that back. So the taking away
sounds more like you're modifying a human being to become smaller.
Yeah, but the taking away sounds complicated enough. The putting back would be even more complicated, because if you put things back in the wrong place, you'll create the thing.
Yeah, and what it sounds like is like you're not just shrinking something now; you are genetically modifying it in order to shrink it, and then you have to do the same process to put it back together as it was.
Well, every cell in the body has the same set of genes. It's just how they're expressed, except for your gonads, for your sex cells, which have half of a chromosome. And then when the sperm cell combines with the egg, it injects half a chromosome in, and then you become half mum and half dad when the baby's created.
In other words, for my parents, I'm a half-ass job.
Yeah, but besides the sperm and egg, all the other cells of the body have a full chromosome. So you wouldn't be genetically modifying it; you'd be physically modifying it. It'd be some what you probably call somatic reduction, which means physically changing the organism to be smaller by removing a certain number of cells. Now, how complicated would that be? Stupidly complicated.
Yeah.
And then putting them back would be even more stupidly complicated, because if you put them back in the wrong place, you get the thing.
I wouldn't like to be a test subject for that. No?
So yeah, don't want that. Or maybe Homer Simpson turned inside out, which was pretty gruesome as well. But yeah, so yeah, I can't see that my second method would be functional, because it's just so complicated. The first method would require a stupid amount of energy, and it would need to be maintained to compress those bonds. So shrinking people down, yeah, I don't see an easy way to do it, but you know, I'm not a physicist, so maybe there's a different way to do it. I don't know what it is. But a lot of technology that's created is really complicated to start with, and then it gets simpler over time and becomes everyday and commonplace. Microwaves were like, oh my God, this is amazing. But, you know, having a microwave emitter with a timer on it and a shield to stop the microwaves from getting out, so they keep bouncing into the food. And microwaves are pretty simple. They pass through something, and when they hit fluid, they make it vibrate. And, of course, movement is equivalent to heat. So it heats it up because the atoms are moving faster. And that's basically how a microwave works. It's pretty damn simple. But coming up with it was the hard part. And you know, actually creating the microwave in the first place. But now they're shit easy to make. There's companies all over the world making them, and they're really, really basic. It's like everyday technology. But at one time, they were state of the art and amazing. And, you know, something like this would be cutting edge and ridiculously complicated to start with, and they might come up with a way to make it really simple. So, like, you know, pack a huge amount of luggage to take to Bali, you press a button and it goes and miniaturizes down, you put it in your pocket and off you go. I mean, you know,
nice.
That could be a thing in the future that we just don't know, because we don't know how to do it yet. But
airlines, you're screwed.
Well, they're not going to get all that extra money for baggage like they do at the moment. But I mean, yeah, just that's the amazing thing about the future, is that we don't know what's coming. We don't know what amazing technologies are going to be, one, developed, and then two, become everyday commonplace things. You look at the Jetsons, we're not at the Jetsons yet, but some of those things we've got And we'd like some of the others. Flying cars, please. But
Singing robots? Housekeeping robots, we haven't.
Oh, yeah. Well, sort of vacuuming robots, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, technology is a wonderful thing, but it takes time, money, effort, and amazing thinkers to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it becomes commonplace technology, and everybody just wonders how they did without it. And that's the beauty of science, that it takes science to create all these things. It certainly takes engineers to build it, but to come up with the idea, you need scientists and science.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, science has an important place in our civilization. And movies like this, if it can get people into the sciences, love it.
Yes, I agree. Okay. So would that conclude the segment?
I think so. Hey, how about you wrap up? I've talked too much. I was going to wrap up, but I need a break.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. So, yeah, this concludes our show. Again, to all of you out there who actually made this show your favorite show, we thank you. We are, again, Goodpods #1. Fiction, fiction, science fiction. So that's only possible because of you. So we really, really thank you for that. Just help us out if you are new to the show. If you like it and you're watching on YouTube, you want to click that subscribe button and click the bell so you get a notification. We are on the pod every Saturday at 7 Eastern time. And that same show comes out a month later on YouTube. So that way you'll be ready when that show comes up. You can actually go into our website. The website is sciencefictionremnant.com. And there we also have some articles. And then just so you know, if you like writing and you like pretty much what the type of articles that we publish on our website, we do take guest writers. So just go ahead and reach out to us if you'd like to do that. All we ask is the topic is along the size of what we do in this show, which is just kind of bridging the gap between science and science fiction. And that is, it has to be about 4 minutes read time. Very simple. So if you like to do that, just go ahead and reach out to us. There's also a contact form on the website that you can reach out. So also, if you want to talk to us, we do have a Discord channel. If you're listening to the pod right now, we have a link to the invite on the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have a QR code that you can scan and say hi to our very own Captain Chaos when you come in. Awesome. You can also help us out if you like what we do and you want to do just a little bit more for us. We do have a Patreon. So you can scan the code on the screen right now, and it should take you to the Patreon site. And you know, I always say this: we need help. We really need help. Chaos needs to keep caffeinated. He's gonna fall asleep on us. So if you can help us and buy me a coffee, we have a QR code on the screen, so you can just scan it and buy our very own Captain Chaos a coffee. That way, you know, he can keep awake on the show. So thank you.
And remember, if you want to get on the ground floor of the This Is Sci-Fi network, please go to thisissci-fi.net and sign up. Part of the sci-fi crowd. It's kind of like the IT crowd, but cooler.
And just to remind you, there's only 2 qualifications right now. You have to be a sci-fi creator of any kind, anything. And once you get accepted, all you got to do is just announce that you are part of the network. and then we can come up together and figure out where this goes. This is in its infancy, and it's kind of cool if you want to come in on the ground floor and help shape this network into a network that is worth the science fiction crowd.
Mhm.
So with that, I thank you guys for listening to our show. I really, really appreciate it, and do look forward for you to come back to us next week. So thank you so much. We appreciate your engagement and your support.
Till next time.
Bye.